A ball cap now. You gotta get that ball cap like a baseball player.
Jim Harbaugh loves beef, literally.
So Jim Harbaugh, like he had this like steak and milk campaign.
I hope you enjoy a steak and glass of milk tonight.
Thank you.
Guys, let's go back to you in Chicago.
Everywhere he goes, beef is sure to follow.
Jim Schwartz, you can see in the white top, yelling and screaming back at Harbaugh.
His management has not been down with Jim Harbaugh, let alone the players. Yeah, this guy's pretty hard to deal with. He has mad genius in him.
Yeah.
He has crazed rage to win in him. It rubs people the wrong way, especially players. He's not what you would call a player's coach.
I'm thinking this is going to be it. He snapped, he's gone. I've lost him.
No, we're not even going to go back to Harbaugh and his nonsense. I know that. I appreciate that. Yeah. We.
Have you always had that competitiveness, or do you feel like you got it from someone, or were you born with it, or somebody
But it is not beyond the pale that he's not everybody's cup of tea. Was there ever a person that looked more uncomfortable with having to address the public?
It was hard. I mean, really hard. But I dealt with all that dysfunction. I went through all that for this.
Are you really down with your head coach, San Francisco 49ers? Because the way it looks to me and what I'm hearing, that you really ain't down for your head coach. And that's the problem.
The atmosphere is almost toxic here.
Really? I think that's a bunch of crap.
Darth Vader, you said, is your guy?
That's my guy.
He doesn't want to let anything out. There's a lot of stories, and he puts his teeth together.
I got a Jim Harbaugh story.
Sometimes it can get a little awkward.
A little is an understatement. He hit it again, and it sent the podium flying across the room, crashing into a wall.
But it also apparently can be a little unhealthy, maybe.
Are you being really serious?
I'm being serious, yeah.
It was all an act to dominate recruiting, which mission accomplished.
Jim Harbaugh wore Trent Baalke out, the general manager of the 49ers.
Oh, yeah, he's different. I just took off.
Yeah, he tried everything he could to win that game, including kicking the light plug out of the wall in Superdome for 25 minutes, and that almost worked.
Slaps the shit out of them, before, they play and stuff, pounding their chests,
Bro, he's one of the most interesting dudes I've ever, been around in my life.
He is.
His, at times, deeply antisocial behavior has always gotten him into trouble. He's burnt more bridges than a California wildfire. This is every Jim Harbaugh beef. When James Joseph Harbaugh played QB at the University of Michigan in the mid-'80s, he did the unthinkable.
We're going to play in the Rose Bowl this year. I guarantee it. We'll beat Ohio State. We'll be in Pasadena on January 1st.
He was potentially setting up the team for extreme humiliation.
When you made your guarantee, was that done just because you felt that strongly, or because it was one more thing that you wanted to motivate yourself and your team with?
That was mainly for myself and for my team.
By Jim Harbaugh, a devastating improviser.
Jim Harbaugh delivered on his guarantee back in 1986, the Wolverines winning that year 26-24.
The Buckeyes kicker missed a game-winning field goal and miraculously proved Jim Harbaugh right.
I mean, you must win. You got to win. It was never you must win, I don't think. It was always you must compete. Fourth grade, the gym teacher, St. Francis Elementary School. But he told Dad and Mom that he had this kid, Jim, and he was in the class, and he was just a little too competitive. It's too important for him to win the game in gym, and maybe that was a character flaw, and maybe that's something that the parents should work on.
This video is sponsored by Good Chop. Good Chop offers fully customizable boxes of high-quality meat and seafood delivered to your door on your schedule. The products are vacuum sealed and have peak freshness. This is perfect if you're somebody like me who enjoys eating high-quality meats. You don't have to waste time and money searching through all these stores for quality cuts. Good Chop's price per meal starts at $3.74. My favorite cut to cook is that T-bone steak, baby. It tastes freaking delicious. Good Chop's T-bone steak is USDA graded and tastes so good on the grill. It's so tender and juicy, man, you can just eat it by itself with nothing else. Tastes delicious. The best thing I like about it is the meat's safe. Good Chop prides itself on sourcing meat that comes with no antibiotics or added hormones, no artificial ingredients, only the good stuff. So this is great for somebody like yourself who wants to save time, know that you're already going to get some high quality meats, not have to think about it, and at the same time know they're going to taste taste delicious and enjoy a wide variety of different cuts. So go to goodchop.com/YouTube and use code WiFi120 or click the link in the caption below to get $120 off across your first 4 boxes. So goodchop.com/YouTube, use code WiFi120 or click the link in the description below to get $120 off across your first 4 boxes. So give it a try. Good Chop. It's only the good stuff. His near psychotic obsession with winning sometimes went to ridiculous extremes. He apparently targeted a 10-year-old kid in laser tag to score easy points for the win at his own bachelor party, and once violently flogged his brother on vacation just for the hell of it.
We get out there, we're building a sandcastle with the kids, and next thing you know, he throws a single leg into my right leg as hard as he can. Or he's strong. He stakes the thing, picks me up, and takes me to the bottom. I see the sand come up around, it's dark, salt water, and all the air bubbles came out. And I'm like, okay, cool, I get it. But then he kind of keeps holding me down there. The waves are coming, holds me down, holds me down, holds me down. All right, I mean, I don't know if it was like a minute, but it seemed like 20 minutes. I'm thinking this is gonna be it. He snapped, he's gone. I've lost him.
His NFL career started with Mike Ditka and the Bears in 1987, and he ended up in the Colts Ring of Honor for his propensity to scramble and improvise, leading to thrilling late-game comebacks. But he always foresaw a long coaching career and ultimately hoisting the Lombardi, something he's still desperately chasing. One of his first and most public beefs was in the late 90s when he was still QB with the Colts. He was always a hothead, but also possibly a liar. In 1997, he once tracked down former Bills QB turned broadcaster Jim Kelly to an NBC production meeting in San Diego. He was upset that Kelly called him a baby on TV after the Colts started the season 0-7. Harbaugh stormed into the room and demanded a private chat with Kelly. Harbaugh claimed he punched him so hard he broke his throwing hand. Jim Kelly denied being hit at all and suggested Harbaugh broke it through other means. The Colts ended up going 3-13 that year before releasing Harbaugh and drafting Peyton Manning. Yes, it's possible that Harbaugh forfeited almost $500,000 over 3 games and was ultimately released because he punched a wall.
He's a character. I think that's the way to say it. He doesn't want to let anything out. There's a lot of stories. When I was interviewing him earlier this year, like everything you ask him, and he puts his teeth together and he thinks how he wants to answer it. I mean, he is very guarded that way.
He was a part of his father's coaching staff at Western Kentucky while an active QB in the league.
When we were at Western Kentucky University, Jim was in Chicago with the Bears.
8 years later, won a national championship.
Won the national 1AA championship.
He landed his first full-time coaching gig with the Oakland Raiders as QB coach under Bill Callahan. But Jim Harbaugh cut his teeth as head coach at the University of San Diego.
My name's Jim Harbaugh. I'm the head football coach at the University of San Diego. Before that, I coached for the Oakland Raiders. Raiders is kind of like a think tank football under Al Davis. He broke down all the film, did all the grunt work. It was great. I mean, just loved it. Learned a lot of football. Didn't get to coach Rich Gannon. The offensive coordinator coached him.
His players told stories of his bizarre behavior, including running so fast he puked on himself while refusing to stop. He never really changed and would go on to be known as an extremely weird but lovable guy.
He stood by the heater too long. His pants had caught on fire before the game.
Oh, yeah, he's different. He has this thing where he like slaps the shit out of them like before like they play and stuff, like pounding their chest. Like,
bro, it was so weird. So my question to you is he really like that? Like, I heard he's just wired different. He's just a different dude. Like,
sometimes it can get a little awkward.
A little is an understatement.
And his zany recruiting antics.
Phony. Yes, it was. It was all an act to dominate recruiting, which mission accomplished.
Coaches don't seem to enjoy recruiting as much as you do. What is it about recruiting that you just love so much?
I like meeting people. I like connecting with people. And
you don't think Jim Harbaugh climbing in a tree, you think that's authentic? That's an act. And it won over the recruit. Jim Harbaugh going in a rap video, authentic and genuine. Trolling Nick Saban by wearing a Julio Jones jersey. There's nothing real about Jim Harbaugh.
Sleeping over at a kicker's house, doing people's dishes, and losing a recruit after refusing to remove his cleats.
Give me Michigan.
We almost got you?
Yeah, but Harbaugh did something really weird.
What did he do?
He just wouldn't take off his cleats. And I have hardwood floors, so you just walking around with cleats, bro.
He just had no respect. So it was over from that.
Weird.
Way to go, Harbaugh.
His beef with Pete Carroll is the stuff of legends and goes back to 1991 when Harbaugh and the Bears upset the Pete Carroll-led Jets defense in a miraculous fourth quarter comeback leading to a thrilling overtime finish.
There's Pete Carroll, the
defensive coordinator of the New York Jets.
A lot of people were shocked and surprised when the Bears picked Harbaugh #1 in 1987.
The Bears' game-winning TD was overturned and players had to be brought back from the locker rooms.
I've never said anything like this. I mean, you may have guys in the shower by now.
Harbaugh sealed the game with a QB sneak. Carroll got his revenge as head coach of the Patriots against Harbaugh's Colts and former division rival, sweeping them in 1997. Harbaugh threw a career-best 30 completions but still got blown out. But their beef reached new lows when they faced off as head coaches in college and the NFL. The hatred between the two would become real and everlasting. In 2006, Jim Harbaugh actually had the gall to try to recruit Pete Carroll's son, Nate, to San Diego. Carroll wasn't present for the home visit, and Nate unsurprisingly chose his dad at USC. It was Stanford that Jim Harbaugh perfected, a pattern he would repeat for years to come. Be the underdog, talk shit on your rival, and then destroy the rival by any means necessary. In 2007, Harbaugh's first season as Stanford's head coach, he fired shots at Pete Carroll, head coach of the dynamic USC Trojans, spreading a rumor that Carroll was about to get canned that year. According to the LA Times, Harbaugh insisted he got his information from multiple people on the USC staff secondhand. Carroll was locked in for another 3 years and said Harbaugh needed to get his information right or call him. It seemed like Harbaugh was mending fences a few months later by praising the Trojans as maybe the best team in the history of college football. But this was just a sarcastic prelude to Stanford's shocking upset over USC later that season.
The #1 team in the country now clinging to just a 6-point lead over the Stanford Cardinals.
By the end of the game, the announcers were in awe that Stanford only trailed by 6 points considering USC was favored by 41. Richard Sherman, a former Stanford wide receiver whom Pete Carroll had unsuccessfully tried to recruit from high school as a lockup corner, made the catch to convert a 4th and 20, breaking his rib in the process. When Stanford scored a touchdown to take a 1-point lead, the announcer let out a Freudian slip. With 49 seconds left in the game, Stanford picked off USC, ending the game and accomplishing the greatest statistical upset in college football history. But Harbaugh wasn't just beefing with Pete Carroll. He was fighting with his own star player as well, who hated Harbaugh so much he tried to transfer schools but was stopped by his mom. A major reason why Richard Sherman switched from wide receiver to corner was to get away from Harbaugh on offense.
It's picked, intercepted by Sherman, and Sherman's going to take this to the house. 42 yards, touchdown Stanford.
Richard Sherman, a wide receiver last year, and that is the biggest play Richard Sherman has ever made, playing defensive back for Stanford.
Fight on, fight on, fight on, SC, fight on. Get him out the top 25. Get him out the top 25.
Harbaugh treated Sherman like a diva and accused him of quitting on the team after Sherman opted for knee surgery after suffering an injury, effectively ending his season. Years later, Sherman said the bridge between he and Harbaugh had been completely burned down and torn down and will never be rebuilt.
You know, what do? Do you switch your major, or do you tell your coach, hey, I got an engineering class from 2 to 3:30, and as Jim Harbaugh would attest, we were also there for football. But
what was it like, and what is it like playing for and now playing against Coach Harbaugh?
It's always been fun, you know. I'm a competitor, he's a competitor. It's always fun. I remember having conversations with you just about, you know, getting recruited, and we joked around about our time at SC and Stanford, and, you know, we're not even gonna go back to Harbaugh and his nonsense and all that. I appreciate that. Yeah. We come on now. I'm not trying to reopen. I appreciate that. Yeah. We've, you know, everybody gets past things. You know, I have a hard time most, but that's my flaw.
Stanford shocked USC again at home in LA by scoring the most points on USC in Trojans history at the time.
Toby Gerhardt, giving it to Taylor, and I don't know. They reached out at the last second, but they're going to say, hey, Pete Carroll might remember that 2-point conversion try. I think so too.
Harbaugh tried to go for 2 while blowing them out, causing Pete Carroll to charge him after the game with the burning question of the century.
Jim Harbaugh will come to the center of the field to beat Pete Carroll, who is not a happy camper, no question about it.
Harbaugh is famous for his maniacal intensity, but also his total lack of sportsmanship. He either fired you up or rubbed you the wrong way. His energy was on full display as he led the number 6 ranked Stanford Cardinal in his final regular season game as their head coach against the Oregon State Beavers.
Just a moment ago, Jim Harbaugh, head coach of Stanford, getting his team fired up, and Owen Marisic, linebacker / fullback, got a little too fired up, knocked him down, as they're looking for a school record 11th win.
In Harbaugh's final season at Stanford in 2010, the team earned its first 11-win season in history, and everyone knew Harbaugh wanted to parlay this success into an NFL job. Reporters asked the obvious question.
Do you think this was the final game that you coached at Stanford?
Oh, please give me a break. You know, have some respect for the game, and it's about the performance tonight of these players. Let's talk about them.
Coincidentally, Pete Carroll had the chance to draft his favorite lockup corner that year in 2011, just a few months after Jim Harbaugh had accepted the head coaching job with the Niners.
I'm excited about the San Francisco 49ers, one of the legendary franchises in all of football.
Rumors had swirled that Harbaugh bad-mouthed Sherman and his Stanford teammate Doug Baldwin right before the draft. Baldwin went undrafted and Sherman fell to the 5th round. Both players went to the Seahawks. They would all soon meet again. The 49ers hadn't gone to the playoffs since 2002 and couldn't string together more than 8 wins since 2005. 49ers owner Jed York and newly appointed GM Trent Baalke forked over a $25 million contract to a rising young star. A big question on everyone's minds: would his my way or the highway antics and strange behavior translate to the NFL? During the 2011 49ers draft party after the first round, Jim Harbaugh made a rookie mistake and offered to take questions from drunk Niner fans. They were already shouting during his speech to draft a quarterback.
And he is going to be a pass rusher for us and first, second, and third down.
While he talked about drafting edge defender Aldon Smith, the 49ers had Alex Smith as their quarterback since selecting him with the number 1 overall pick in 2005. But he was in the final year of his contract, and some fans wanted to see a change. So when Harbaugh opened it up for questions, the first fan asked about bringing Alex Smith back, and it made the crowd furious.
Anybody got a few questions?
The fans would get their wish in the second round after trading up to pick 36 with Denver. The 49ers selected quarterback Colin Kaepernick from Nevada.
San Francisco 49ers select Colin Kaepernick, quarterback, Nevada.
This would be one of the most critical draft selections during Jim Harbaugh's tenure with the 49ers. As luck would have it, Jim Harbaugh's first game as an NFL head coach was against Pete Carroll and the Seattle Seahawks in 2011.
Jim Harbaugh making his NFL coaching debut with the 49ers, and Pete Carroll in his second year with the Seattle Seahawks, and they have a history. There may be no love lost between the two of them.
They don't like each other. They were rivals in college. They're rivals in the same division.
The 49ers trounced them, winning 33-17. The Niners started off hot with a 5-1 record, but signs of Harbaugh's punk-like immature attitude started to show. Following a win against the heartbroken Detroit Lions, Harbaugh practically ripped off his shirt and jumped around like it was the Super Bowl just to rub it in? No one really knows. When Lions coach Jim Schwartz approached him for the handshake, Harbaugh decided to violently slap his hand and back, dismissively shoving him, and then allegedly yelled an obscenity at him. Naturally, Schwartz went ballistic, which led to one of the most legendary coach-led brawls of all time.
Jim Schwartz, you can see in the white top and the gray pants there, yelling and screaming back at Harbaugh's direction. Harbaugh's in the middle of that somewhere. The Lions and Niners then go toe-to-toe. You're going to see some people putting their helmets back on their heads as if a fight is going to break out.
Even the Niners owner rebuked Harbaugh for his immature antics. You beat the pre-2023 Lions, dude. Chill out. Schwartz clarified what happened during the debacle.
Well, I went to congratulate Coach Harbaugh and got shoved out of the way. Didn't expect an obscenity at that point, so it was a surprise to me at the end of the game.
While Harbaugh avoided taking any responsibility for the fight.
I really think it's just a mini controversy.
completely irrelevant in the game itself.
It's worth noting that as the LA Chargers' new head coach, Harbaugh will get his rematch against Jim Schwartz, now the defensive coordinator for Cleveland, in the 2024 season. But as embarrassed as the owner, Jed York likely felt, as they say, winning cures everything. Most teams struggle with the newish squad, new scheme, and practically no offseason whatsoever, owing to the historic NFL lockout that year. But the 49ers decided to buck the trend and go 13-3, winning their division and playing for the conference title.
Who would have thought a season after a 6-10 finish, a team that hadn't been to the postseason in 9 years, Alex Smith trying to get his team in a position to go to the Super Bowl.
They ended up narrowly losing to Eli Manning and the Giants, who went on to defeat Tom Brady and the Patriots in the Super Bowl. But the season exceeded their fans' wildest expectations. But Harbaugh had definitely whipped this organization into shape practically overnight. The 49ers had a QB controversy before the next 2012 season began. Alex Smith was allowed to test free agency during the offseason. Meanwhile, the 49ers secretly pursued Peyton Manning at a covert meeting over PB&J sandwiches. Harbaugh, Jed York were fully in on Peyton Manning, but Manning ultimately preferred his connection with John Elway in Denver. Little did Harbaugh know that this secret meeting would come back to haunt him. The real QB controversy followed in the last week of November, when Jim Harbaugh chose the hot hand of Colin Kaepernick to start the remainder of the season after Alex Smith was concussed in week 10.
In one season, you take the team like a kick away from the Super Bowl. Next season starts 6-2, you get a concussion.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden, boom, like Colin had played well those couple games. And I knew he was obviously their guy. They brought him in.
He was able to return the following week, but Harbaugh gave him the shaft. It was reported at the time that Harbaugh's pursuit of Manning caused a rift in the locker room between the players, particularly Alex Smith and the coach.
Your dad said, quote, "It was an honest and selfless locker room, and Harbaugh's decision showed the veterans, I'm going to flush this quarterback down the toilet. It's easy to destroy trust, and Harbaugh lost the trust of the team. Veteran players have told us that."
I really want to know if they're really playing for the head coach. Are you really down with your head coach, San Francisco 49ers? Because the way it looks to me and what I'm hearing, that you really ain't down for your head coach.
Do you have any reaction to that? Do you at all believe there's anything to this?
I personally think that's a bunch of crap.
In 2012, after the Niners beat the Seahawks in Week 7, Jim Harbaugh could no longer hold back. Harbaugh honked his horn at Seahawks players on a bus exiting Candlestick Park and mockingly waved at them. Harbaugh said the players lied about it to make him look bad, but the damage was done. The next time they saw each other that season, the Seahawks blew them out, narrowly making the playoffs in the process. At one point during the game, Richard Sherman, who remember was Harbaugh's star player at Stanford when Harbaugh humiliated Pete Carroll's Trojans, suggested that Pete get his revenge by scoring and going for 2. Carroll decided not to rub it in, saying we have more class than that, as it was also Jim Harbaugh's birthday. It got so bad that season that Harbaugh threatened the Seahawks with reporting their secondary to the league office for being too physical. Sherman hit back, calling him a bully who bullies and a hypocrite for bitching about the officiating when he doesn't play fair himself. Pete Carroll mocked Harbaugh's threats and said he doubts anything will come of it. 2012 was the same year as the epic Hail Mary game and the NFL referee lockout. So yeah, Pete was right. Needless to say, this piping hot rivalry would reach epic proportions the following season.
On top of that victory going up against your former coach, Jim Harbaugh.
Oh yeah, happy birthday, Coach Harbaugh. Hope you enjoyed it.
But back to 2012 for a second. Jim Harbaugh shook it off, ate some birthday cake, and took a hot bath. His Niners casually passed the Seahawks by in the postseason, defeating the Atlanta Falcons in the NFC Championship.
The 49ers are going to the Super Bowl.
Who's got it better than us? Nobody!
Harbaugh would embrace his new QB, who had reached the Super Bowl in his first season as a starter. Super Bowl 47, where he had to face off against his own brother, John, and the Baltimore Ravens. This was the first brother-on-brother violence in the NFL. See, Kelsey's, you're not that special. 49ers were down 28-6 at the half.
The 49ers have put themselves in a position where to win, they're going to have to craft one of the great stories in Super Bowl history.
But they started mounting their comeback after a power outage at halftime, which left players stretching in the dark for almost 40 minutes.
Half the power in New Orleans Stadium, the Superdome here, is out.
Niners made it a 5-point game by the third quarter, 28-23, and appeared to be staging an improbable comeback. In the fourth quarter, Kaepernick set the record for the longest touchdown run by a quarterback in Super Bowl history, but then fails on the 2-point conversion, making it 31-29. The Ravens score a field goal, taking a 5-point lead, 34-29. Kaepernick throws 2 incompletions in the red zone with 1:50 left on the clock. The Niners have to go for it on 4th down.
Walks it in the air. No flag. Incomplete.
We hold it!
He tackled his hands.
Yes, is the referee going to throw that when a Super Bowl's on the line? No, he's not going to.
The game ends with the Ravens punter committing a bizarre safety, making it only a 3-point deficit. Despite coming within a hair of hoisting the Lombardi, Jim Harbaugh's own brother stops him. Jim alphas his brother with a face grab, but ultimately manages to control his temper. The QB controversy would officially end when the 49ers would trade quarterback Alex Smith in March of 2013 to Andy Reid and the Kansas City Chiefs for a 2nd-round pick, plus a conditional pick. Unfortunately, the former number 1 overall pick in 2005 was hopelessly associated with losing seasons and had to be dumped as soon as the franchise turned a corner. The Seahawks ended up getting their revenge the next season in 2013. They blew out the Niners in a regular season game, and Harbaugh once again showed a ridiculous lack of sportsmanship by refusing to shake Sherman's hand afterwards. Never one to shy from controversy, Richard Sherman decided he had already figuratively spanked Harbaugh and that he now needed to literally do it. Nothing like maliciously spanking your former college coach on live TV for all to see. Only a couple years ago, Sherman said he had no hard feelings towards Harbaugh anymore because he got to end his NFL career. Is this standard fare for fierce division rivals, or is there actual bad blood here?
And I meant it to Harbaugh. We've had our history. I don't regret it. That's second of that. There's bad blood there. There's history, and there's not. That's not the team. That's not me. Like, oh man, the team's bad. Like that was very personal.
Despite the Niners reaching the NFC Championship game in Harbaugh's first 3 years, becoming the first NFL head coach to do so, and a Super Bowl, they never hoisted the Lombardi. Tragically for Harbaugh, the Niners narrowly lost to the Seahawks in the NFC Conference Championship.
Off the hands of Richard Sherman.
Tired, I didn't sleep, and I'm devastated right now.
Hey, you don't try the best corner in the league in the crunch, especially with no mediocre receiver like Crabtree. He's weak.
Well, I'm the best corner in the game. When you try me with a sorry receiver like Crabtree, that's the result you're going to get.
And the Seahawks are going to the Super Bowl.
Don't you ever talk about me.
Who was talking about you?
Crabtree, don't you open your mouth about the best. Or I'm going to set it for you real quick.
But now that we know this history, was the hatred really directed at Crabtree, or was it more about Harbaugh? It's more impressive that Harbaugh's 49ers had such an amazing 3 years because they did it with 2 different quarterbacks. The first year they had Alex Smith, but midway through the second season, Harbaugh replaced him with none other than Colin Kaepernick. Kaepernick was on fire. He was able to scramble, keeping plays alive, or surprise the defense with unbelievable throws downfield. He even set the record for rushing yards by a quarterback in the playoffs against Green Bay. Kaepernick had been so impressive his first year and a half with the Niners that they signed him to a shiny new 6-year, $114 million deal right before the 2014 season. The Niners were looking unstoppable with a bright future ahead. Little did we know, trouble was brewing behind the scenes between Harbaugh, the GM, and owner Jed York, trouble that would inevitably spill over onto the field. The 2014 season would be a complete disaster, and their team would fall to 8-8, missing the postseason for Harbaugh's first year as head coach. In early September, Deion Sanders dropped a bombshell.
I really want to know if they're really playing for the head coach.
Really?
Yeah, I got a question with that. Are you really playing? Are you really down with your head coach, San Francisco 49ers? I'm not hard to find, because the way it looks to me and what I'm hearing, that you really ain't down for your head coach, and that's a problem.
Players are thinking, yeah, this guy's pretty hard to deal with. He has mad genius in him. Yeah. He has crazed rage to win in him. It rubs people the wrong way, especially players.
Jim Harbaugh, who usually is cool as a cucumber during pressers, would finally snap.
Do you have any reaction to that? Do you at all believe there's anything to this?
Yeah, personally, I think that's a bunch of crap.
This morning was saying that the atmosphere is almost toxic here.
Really?
Do you get any?
Trent, right?
What's that?
I haven't seen Trent or Deion around much.
Is it important for players to like a coach?
Again, this has gone on way too far, in my opinion. We're talking about unnamed sources.
Former left tackle Joe Staley let us know how difficult the final year of Harbaugh's time with the 49ers was in an interview years down the road in 2023. He talks about the coach's personality during that time. Quote, obviously his personality rubs people the wrong way. He's hard to get along with consistently. If you're a Harbaugh guy, you're in his camp, and if you're not, you're very against him. That was building over the last 2 years prior to that. The left tackle Staley even revealed that as of week 15, in Harbaugh's final year, the players had already heard behind the scenes that he was on the outs with the owner. NBC's Peter King would report at the time that the season was doomed from the start, with one side of the building leaking stuff to hurt the other side. It became clear that Jim Harbaugh's complete lack of professionalism had rubbed his own organization the wrong way, mainly his GM Trent Baalke and owner Jed York. The owner, after moving on from Harbaugh, tried to pretend that the decision was mutual.
Why isn't he the coach of the 49ers?
And this was a mutual decision.
This is what happens when you let Jim Harbaugh go and you let a 27-year-old guy become your owner. That's just my opinion.
This wasn't us saying, Jim, you're fired, you're not here anymore. This wasn't Jim saying, I don't want to be there, I'm leaving. It was a discussion that took place over, a decent amount of time.
Harbaugh unapologetically hit him back.
So much comment from Jed York that it was a mutual separation. You two sides mutually agreed that you wouldn't be the coach. Is that at all true? Is that what happened, or were you told that you wouldn't be the coach anymore?
Well, yes, I was told I wouldn't be the coach anymore. You can call it mutual. I mean, I wasn't going to put the 49ers in a position to have a coach that they didn't want anymore. That's the truth of it. I didn't leave the 49ers. I felt like the 49er hierarchy left me. So.
You could have left at that point? I mean, did you want to coach the final 2 games just because you want to finish this out?
Yeah, I did. I wanted to finish what we started, and
notably, people also blamed Colin Kaepernick's poor performance and accused him of regressing.
He don't want to play, man. He was trash, everything. Trash? Yeah.
Jim Harbaugh has proven to be an elite coach on the NFL. He deserves his money. He does not deserve the criticism that he has gotten, quietly, tacitly. And oh, by the way, Boone needs to let me teach Boone something here.
Uh-oh.
Make no mistake about it, that it's coming from that organization, too.
Oh, for sure.
All right, listen, it's not an accident. Yeah. So let's just keep that in mind.
Jay Glazer of Fox Sports reported that even if the 49ers won the Super Bowl, Harbaugh would be fired before the 2015 season.
The San Francisco 49ers win with class. We haven't won, and I don't think we've conducted ourselves with the level of class that I expect of our organization. It's up to us to make sure we compete for and win Super Bowls. That's our only goal. We don't raise division championship banners. We don't raise NFC championship banners. We raise Super Bowl banners.
Francisco 49ers from 2003 to 2010, spanning 8 seasons, missed the playoffs every year. The first year that Jim Harbaugh comes in there, they go to the NFC Conference Championship game.
We didn't win the Super Bowl. I mean, if we don't win the Super Bowl, we are not executing on our vision.
It got so bad that after the Niners lost to the Seahawks on Thanksgiving, Jed York actually apologized to fans on Twitter.
Jed York just tweeted out that this kind of performance was unacceptable, and he apologized to the fans. Is that an appropriate reaction to this game tonight?
We didn't get it done. The Seahawks played much better team football.
Does that mean it doesn't matter to you one way or another, Jim, what your owner tweets?
I don't know anything about the tweet.
Maddie just told you.
Yeah. What matters is what we do, how we respond as a football team.
When you sent out that tweet, was that acting with class on Thanksgiving? You're the one who's brought up the topic.
Yeah, when we invite 70,000 people to change their Thanksgiving Day, routines and rituals, and we perform the way we did, I'm disappointed by that.
I get a lot of mail and a lot of tweets. Very few people defended you on that. You may have a reason.
That's fine.
And Trent may agree with you. I can tell you that my readership really does not think you acted with class then. And maybe when Mark asks what you learned, maybe that's something you need to learn.
Thanks for the lesson, Lowell.
It's my pleasure.
Sounds like the two had more in common than they realized. Before the 2014 season even started, it felt like Harbaugh already knew his time was done with San Francisco. He appeared checked out during press conferences, and many reporters picked up on it.
Sense any demoralization in your team? Do you have to motivate them at this point, or are there veterans and you just let them, keep playing?
Yeah, they're disappointed with the loss.
How disappointed are you?
we know what we have to do. We'll set our jaw to that.
During Jim Harbaugh's final press conference, there were already rumors that Harbaugh was packing his bags for Michigan.
Jim, do you expect to be the next coach at Michigan?
There'll be announcements made, concerning those things.
His former D-line coach, Jim Tomsula, was always lurking in the background, much more popular among players, and had almost become the interim head coach before Harbaugh insisted he finish what he'd started. Unsurprisingly, he took over ahead of the 2015 season, ushering in shorter practices and allowing players more freedom, including phone usage. Harbaugh was asked about his relationship with Tomsula and if he knew he would take his job.
Did you at all feel like he was campaigning for your job while you still had it?
There was definitely a point where you walk down the halls and you definitely walk down the halls and people look away or they look at you and you know something's going on. And
the team thought they'd purged the locker room cancer and the sky was the limit going into the next season. They ended with a 5-11 record and registered one of the worst offenses in 49ers history, scoring the least amount of points since 2005. Womp womp. Many suspect the source of the reports about Harbaugh not returning during 2014 and leaks about his cancerous attitude in the locker room came from the 49ers owner Jed York and GM Trent Baalke. During their press conference, when they would discuss moving on from Harbaugh, York was asked directly if he was the source, and he fumbled tremendously.
Were you the source of any of those stories?
No.
Were you concerned at all when you saw those stories?
Listen, I mean, there are distractions for every team in every situation. I don't think that that's really a significant issue.
Why didn't at any point you say these reports are wrong?
I did. I said Jim's my coach.
That's not saying the reports are wrong.
I mean, I can say all of your reporting is wrong. I can go through that, but I don't read all of the reports.
As insane and belligerent as Jim Harbaugh would act, the Niners' post-firing aftermath made Jed York look bad. He ended up firing Tomsula after one season, but then let subsequent coach Chip Kelly and Trent Baalke go after one season in 2016. He fired 3 coaches in 3 seasons, plus his GM, and he took some heat for it. His reply? Basically, I'm the owner, you can't fire me, fuck you.
Why shouldn't you be dismissed or reassigned for the same reasons?
Look, again, nothing I'm going to say is going to be
Say
satisfactory.
something.
I own this football team. You don't dismiss owners. I'm sorry that that's the facts and that's the case, but that's the fact.
So in 2015, Harbaugh did what very few people expected him to do, and he traded in the swanky lifestyle and fully guaranteed contracts of an NFL head coach for agriculture expos and college town hamburger joints. The beef became very literal. Harbaugh's return to the University of Michigan was the stuff of legends. People even wrote books about it. He led the Wolverines to 2 10-win seasons, the first Michigan coach to do so in the modern era. He came within a hair's width of playing for the Big Ten championship and playoff berth in 2016 and 2018, but ultimately failed. Michigan State and or Ohio State could simply not be beat. And then the pandemic hit. Sure, the Big Ten had a chaotic shortened season, but everyone had to deal with the same restrictions. Harbaugh, true to form, started beef with Ohio State coach Ryan Day by implying Day was breaking the rules with player workouts. Day absolutely brutalized him by saying Harbaugh should pray the Big Ten institutes a mercy rule since the Buckeyes were going to hang 100 on them that fall. Michigan had arguably their worst season since the Great Depression. They suffered their biggest halftime deficit and largest home loss since 1927 and 1935 respectively. They lost to 0-5 Penn State. They lost every single home game that year. But you know what they say about rock bottom.
Oh, what's great about hitting rock bottom? There's only one way left to go, and that's up!
Michigan decided to give Harbaugh one more shot by extending him through the 2025 season. The Wolverines beat literally everyone, with their only loss to Michigan State being marred by the Big Ten's acknowledgement of an officiating error that would have given Michigan the dub. They finally made the Big Ten championship game for the first time and earned an Orange Bowl berth against Georgia. He'd finally won AP's College Football Coach of the Year after narrowly missing it in 2010 when it went to Chip Kelly at Oregon instead. Jim Harbaugh Harbaugh was back on top and flirting with the return to the NFL. The Las Vegas Raiders had the highest odds headed into the 2022 season to nab him. His first NFL coaching gig was with the Oakland Raiders after all, and the NFL commissioner had just personally removed his enemy from the league by leaking old politically incorrect private emails. This looked like the perfect opportunity. For as yet unknown reasons, he never formally interviewed with Raiders owner Mark Davis, and Davis instead infamously opted to bring the Patriot way to Vegas. Shameless plug for my video on that disaster. But Harbaugh did interview with the Minnesota Vikings. They had just lost their head coach GM duo due to disappointing seasons and an angry supermodel girlfriend. Harbaugh was reportedly insisting on re-entering the NFL and chasing the Lombardi once again. He had legitimate interest in them, and they had legitimate interest in him. The Vikings recently hired GM Kwesi Adofo-Mensah, and he was supposed to have a major input on the new coach. He already had a few candidates in mind: Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris, D'Amico Ryans, and Patrick Graham, but added an exploratory interview with Jim Harbaugh. Harbaugh became his unequivocal top choice, as Adofo-Mensah worked in the Niners front office in 2013 and was familiar with Harbaugh's brash style along with his coaching success. Other coaching candidates eventually started dropping out as Harbaugh, brimming with confidence, flew out for a second interview that reporters called merely a formality since it looked like such a done deal. He even said his goodbyes and thank yous to Michigan. He said it would be his last time pursuing any position in the NFL. Then, a mysterious and prolonged silence took hold of Vikings Twitter. Everyone wondered what was the holdup. Some people noted that the Vikings organization had interviewed Giants defensive coordinator Patrick Graham for 9 hours, and maybe he was really their favorite. Suddenly, reports broke that the Vikings refused to extend him an offer, prompting articles like "What the fuck happened between Harbaugh and the Vikings?" It seemed Harbaugh's past was finally catching up with him. Niners owner Jed York was reportedly begging the Wilf brothers not to make his same mistake. That one's not really a surprise, especially from a fellow NFC opponent. The biggest shocker came from within. A Vikings minority stakeholder, Jim Stapleton, who claimed to have intimate knowledge of Harbaugh's secret nefarious behavior at Michigan and who'd been lobbying hard not to bring him in.
The current holdup on the Vikings announcing Jim Harbaugh as the next head coach is minority owner Jim Stapleton, Michigan alum who is adamant, practically begging the Wolf brothers not to hire Jim Harbaugh.
For what it's worth, an anonymous Vikings source tried to rebut the claim that Stapleton is a minority owner of the Vikings to discredit the notion that Stapleton played a role in blackballing Harbaugh. Since none of that information is public, we'll never know the truth. Regardless, this man, Jim Stapleton, would come back to haunt Jim Harbaugh in the not-so-distant future. So Jim Harbaugh sort of awkwardly sidled back to Ann Arbor to a fan base that was able to breathe a collective sigh of relief. That season in 2022, Harbaugh's Wolverines trounced everyone, including the Buckeyes, and went 13-0 for the first time in school history. They ended up losing to TCU in a Fiesta Bowl shootout, but once again, as he'd done at Stanford, the 49ers, and now Michigan, the season exceeded fans' wildest expectations. The season was so humiliating for Michigan's rivals that Michigan State players actually attacked and brutally assaulted 2 Michigan players, taunting their rivals in the tunnel. Harbaugh issued a scathing rebuke of the incident and promised criminal charges. Were his own players infected by his lack of sportsmanship and love of beef? While it was a miserable incident that marred an otherwise historic season, more and perhaps more serious trouble loomed on the horizon. But Jim Stapleton, watching it all from a close distance, would re-emerge as a familiar foe. Stapleton would end up being involved in a scandal that would engulf Harbaugh's career and potentially demolish his reputation for good. Jim Harbaugh has always had a holier-than-thou approach to the rules, openly complained about cheating and corruption. In 2019, he gave a preachy quote to his friend, author and Jim Stapleton enemy, John Bacon, that it's hard to beat the cheaters without identifying any of the so-called rule breakers or the type of violations they may have committed. His first year at Michigan in 2015, he made a statement that hasn't exactly aged very well. I take the rules very seriously, understanding the rules, understanding the consistency, the clarity of the rules, not just the rules, but the spirit of the rules, and doing everything that we can to follow the rules. It's an open secret in college football that the wealthier programs gain an unfair advantage through quote-unquote analysts who end up on the field assisting players, especially in skilled positions. Ahead of the 2021 season, a couple of Michigan analysts let it slip that they were coaching players despite not being listed as coaches. Michigan also caught some flack for mostly harmless violations in 2021 after calling junior recruits a few days too early. But early in 2023, after the Wolverines' historic season, about a year after Stapleton allegedly blackballed Harbaugh from the Vikings job, their beef turned very literal. Michigan got hit with a slew of NCAA violations, and chief among them was Harbaugh's lack of cooperation with the investigation. It's probably worth mentioning at this point that Jim Stapleton had recently volunteered to serve on the infractions committee for the NCAA, largely considered to be a miserable, thankless task, wading through tedious minutiae only to be greeted by a hostile public. Some people are just naturally motivated by justice. Less than a month earlier, Stapleton and his committee hit Harbaugh with a level 1 violation for being non-cooperative with their investigation. Since a level 1 violation is the worst, reports indicated that Harbaugh would be faced with a multi-game suspension. Losing your head coach, even for a few games, could potentially doom Michigan's season and end their streak. The off-season period was a roller coaster. Harbaugh refused to admit any wrongdoing, which delayed the case. Michigan fired one of their analysts who was really a coach, a recruiting assistant and son of legendary Michigan coach Bo Schembechler. Shimmy, whom Harbaugh babysat as a child, was forced to resign over liking an offensive tweet. And by July, it looked like Harbaugh would be out 4 games. Unable to reach an agreement, Michigan just went ahead and imposed their own 3-game suspension on Harbaugh to appease the NCAA. It was against easy teams, so people weren't too upset. Turns out the investigation was delayed for so long because the committee was sitting on an even bigger story: sign stealing. Signs are basically unique hand signals or placards that coaches use to communicate to the quarterback while on the sidelines. Stadiums are loud, college football doesn't use microphones like the NFL, so teams essentially use sign language. Michigan allegedly sent out another analyst and a retired Marine to lead a crew of smartphone-wielding sign stealers who allegedly attended more than 30 games at Big Ten schools over the past 3 seasons. Pictures surfaced of Stalions recording signs with his iPhone. A couple days later, Stalions resigns and his attorney insists Harbaugh had no knowledge of anything whatsoever.
Is it a head coach's responsibility to know everything that's going on in the program?
I think that question probably answers itself.
Then Michigan rescinded their contract offer, though it technically was more of a pause. Whatever. Harbaugh was in hot water and Michigan was cautious. Then the Big Ten took action and formally notified Michigan that the jig was officially up and they will have to sacrifice more than a few games against UNLV and Bowling Green. They suspended Harbaugh for the remainder of the season, including their game against Ohio State. But the Wolverines went on to win the national championship game for the first time since 1997.
Simply known as national champions. Pull it down! Pull it down! We did that!
About a week after, it was reported that Harbaugh hired a new agent, Don Yee, known for his NFL connections and agent to people like Tom Brady and Sean Payton. Jim Harbaugh's propensity to beef with everyone can sometimes inspire and motivate the team. Sometimes his lack of sportsmanship is infectious and sets a bad example for his players, who end up mimicking him with violent results. And sometimes it ends up upsetting the wrong college football bureaucrat who will stop at nothing to cause problems for you. Either way, Jim Harbaugh is back in the NFL only for the second time.
This just in, the Chargers introducing Jim Harbaugh as their next head coach. He's at the podium. Let's take a listen.
I mean, let's go. You know, Justin Herbert walks up on you, like, okay, all right.
Only time will tell whether he has learned his lesson.
There it is.